for now and for the next 6 months and probably for the next year. It's this pattern here. So this is a very simple M top or double top price formation. So when I see a pattern, this tells me, what this is likely to do over the long term. Now, I can't control, how it's going to get there. Just like I think Tesla is going to go to $300, but, Tesla could get into one of these things where it could take 3 months for it to break the 700 level and go to the next level. But unlike that analyst at Morgan Stanley that's put a $1,200 target on Tesla, I'm banking on Tesla going to 300. So, and now you have a rounding top here. And, so I bought these puts right here. So you could see I bought about a week or so ago. I paid about 23 cents for these puts. So this has to go to what, $19.27 for me just to break even. So you can see that I'm racing against time. This is 19.33. So I need this to go down 6 cents just for me to break even. But, and then I bought some puts for next week too. So, I was counting on a major decline because, silver has been sitting on this ledge for so long. And I thought actually last week's Federal Reserve testimony was going to push it over the cliff. So I'm always looking for some catalyst. But the problem with silver is that it's just been sitting here, right? So this is, if you've got, options, this is the worst thing for a naked option, is for something to just sit because your premium just gets, but to my mind, silver is just sitting on, let me just use a better contrast here. Silver's sitting on a ledge. So I always think of market in terms of weight, collective weight. And I thought about it this way, I kind of see markets in a certain way and I'm thinking, how do I explain it to you? So I'm going to ask you a question. If there was a war and you had 500 people on one side and you had like 9 people on the other side, who would likely win that war? It's not a trick question. I know you're trying to think, well, I'm suckering you into something. It's just like, what do you think? Who would win this war? If you had 500 people on one side, so team 1 or team A has got 500 people and team B has got 9, who would win the war? So Ronnie says 500, Vito says A, Al says A. And you're right. It's not unless it's David and Goliath, right? Where you had one David and you took down a big Goliath. But forget that. I'm trying to find a metaphor to explain something. So when I look at silver, silver, this is a weekly chart going back to where? This was June of 2020. So we have collectively 2 years of history. So 2 years, this thing has hit this thing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, call it, 7 or 8 times, right? And so now you have literally all of these guys, 500 or more bars, probably way more than 500. So you have all of this weight sitting on this one guy here. He's trying to hold up, it's like a Girl Scout trying to hold up a sumo wrestler. Eventually this, this is like kind of having a shelf. You put a shelf on your wall, and then you take one of your potted plants from outside that weighs 300 pounds, and you put it on top of the shelf in your house, right? You put your plant here with this big tree, and it weighs about 400 pounds. It's just going to cave this shelf in. So that's how I think about markets. I think about the collective weight that is sitting on all of these guys. All of these guys are trying to hold up, all of the collective selling that's been going on. And eventually that shelf has just got to cave in. And I took a bet last week that it was going to cave in sooner rather than later. And now I've got a race against time. We'll see what happens tomorrow. I mean, I could just get wiped out by one stupid one day where, silver's unchanged or up 10 cents and I'll lose all of my money. And, that's why it's very hard to buy these options, because I'm literally going into tomorrow betting that hopefully I'll get some of my money back. And then I've got some options for next week. But again, I just took a bet that this pattern, the double top, the head and shoulders, and then all of this collective weight was eventually going to get caved in. And you can see I took some bets in the spot market, which are already starting to pay off. I sold some silver in the spot market and gold. And then I bought these put options. So, it was just a big bet that this shelf was going to cave in. And so that's, why I'm looking at it, because to me, pattern precedes trajectory. So, we've heard for 2 years now, we've heard, inflation's at a 40-year high. The central banks are out of control and printing money. In the meantime, silver has never been able to go higher. So, that's the thing. You hear all of these gold, rooms and whatever. One of my best friends in the world sells gold. And I goad him all the time, and say, this thing's going nowhere but lower. And so, if silver or gold wasn't able to go up in the worst era of inflation that we've seen in 50 years, what's going to put it up now? So, but forget all of that noise. I'm just looking at price. So all here, price told me this double top here, this kind of funky head and shoulders, this double top. So you have all of this topping information, all of these price tops. And with the word top, it can only do one thing. It can only go lower. But you're, been programmed, hey, how can I sell silver or gold? Everybody's been telling me that this is the worst era of inflation and, we're going into a debt crisis and all that. And so how can I short? So this is where you stop listening to the noise and you got to listen to price. And price is usually counterintuitive. Whatever you've been conditioned and told, the market is doing something else. And I just listen to the market. So this is how I look at any chart. And then the way I look at things is that I set up my structure and then I have a certain expectation, right? So now this is kind of my expectation. We should see some kind of push out of this area lower. And so now I defer. So instead of looking at a textbook and saying, okay, I got a double top head and shoulders, and now this thing's just going to go down here. And I bet, that's what I do expect. But now I'm always like alert to what the market then tells me. How does the market come out of this thing? So if the market comes, so usually what happens is you come out of a neckline like this, you bounce out, then you kind of retest. And then if you make a new low, then it's game on. And this is what I would expect. So in my mind, this is my visualization out of this chart. But, look, I'm, partial dementia by now. And it could be just a hallucination. So I just see what the market tells me. So if the market kind of does this stutter step, does one of these and starts doing one of these, all kinds of alarm bells are going to be going off in my brain. So while I might be showing you a pattern now, it's not set in stone. I'm going to be watching what the market does out of that pattern. And so, there's just two ways this thing can react. And I'm betting on it going this way. But if the market goes the other way, I've made a ton of money when the market should do something and it goes the other way. And so, sometimes you get into these traps where the market goes for a little bit, comes out of this area, everybody puts their sell stops here, and then it goes that way. I don't see this thing happening. There's just too much, and that's the other thing is that markets are price, right? Here's the price, but they're also time, right? So the more mature a pattern is, the more work it's done, the more weight that's on here. This is 2 years of weight sitting on this guy right there. He's got to hold up 2 years worth of selling pressure. And so I think it's just going to cave in big time. And so, again, this is a, very mature pattern. But again, if this thing comes out, does a little pattern here, and then starts going that way, I'll hop on the other side very, very quickly. So the market is very dynamic. And so I put my structure and boundaries around prices, and then I see how markets play within those, does it or doesn't it? So Randy says, I'm glad you said partial dementia. Yeah, so I'm probably 3/4 of the way there. Stuart says, how do you interpret a head and shoulders in an uptrend? So that would be an inverted head and shoulders. And actually, silver, ironically, did have an inverted head and shoulders. And I made 7 figures betting on a silver pattern that did make an inverted head and shoulders prior to this. So right here. So that was silver a few years ago. And so whoever asked about an inverted head and shoulders. So this is an upside down head and shoulders. So we see these patterns all the time. Here's the shoulder, here's the head. So this is this is a head and shoulders, and this would be an upside down version of it. So this is a bear pattern that indicates a market going lower, like we see in silver now. And this is an inverted head and shoulders, which indicates an upward momentum. So when I noticed this inverted head and shoulders in silver, and it was breaking the neckline here, I started loading up, and it went from 19 to 28. And I literally made 7 figures in those 3 bars. So that's the thing, this market went sideways for like 10 years. And then in 3 weeks, it made its move. And that's the crime of trading, is that you can watch and watch and watch and watch and go to sleep and watch, and then bang, you go on vacation and it does its move, and then it's over. So this is an inverted head and shoulders. But then the market's, does its thing. This pattern works. It did its, work, and then it went into another pattern. So these markets, morph from one pattern where it was bullish, and then there was no more follow through. And now you've just gone into 2 years sideways. So now you've turned from bullish to bearish. So, broke out, went to $30, and now it looks like it's going to round trip and go back to $12. So you have to just adjust. So, sometimes the pattern will do its job. It'll send it to where it's supposed to go. And now we have a new pattern. And that's basically what's happening in BABA. BABA had a very discernible double top, head and shoulders, and now it's putting on a new pattern. So the markets are dynamic. They're fluid. They do their thing, and they go to a certain place, and after a certain while, market's not going to go straight down forever. So here is your head and shoulders. This told you right here that it was topping out right at this neckline, which was around $250. And this thing went down to $60 or $70. So that pattern did its job. It told you where to get in. And, now this guy says, okay, we're starting to find, it's not going to go right into the ground. It's not going to go to zero. So now this guy told you that it was starting to find a foothold, that, this huge key reversal. Now, when you have a huge downtrend like this, the market just doesn't go from a huge downtrend to an uptrend. It's like, the metaphor I always use is picture a super tanker out in the ocean. You're in the Middle East, you're, bus driving one of these big oil super tankers. You get a call from home to turn around. You got to come back home. It would literally take you 18 miles of ocean to turn that super tanker in 180 degrees. And it's the same thing with markets. They don't just go straight down and then straight up. This thing is doing a super tanker roll, but it is, starting around that corner. And so you can see here is the Adam and Eve double bottom on the weekly chart, the same thing we saw in the daily. But in addition to the pattern, I look at the price action right here. Made a new low, closed well off the high. So when this thing made an all-time new low at $70, by the end of the week, the buyers were firmly in control. So there's been buying in here. And you can see every time it comes in this area, the buyers end up, makes a new low, close on the high, makes a new. So it's when I see a combination of an emerging pattern. So, the pattern will only be confirmed here, about 120. But I start getting in these things very early based on the price action. And the earlier you get in, the lesser amount of risk you take. So I still think that, if this is turning, there's a lot left on the table here. So this thing won't be confirmed until it hits 120. So this could still stop short here and go back down. And there's a big risk of that. This is still really a downtrend. Major trend is down. So you can see we're just about to carve through the major downtrend line. So you could get a big short covering rally and then it could go right back into the trend. So what you'll also notice about these charts, I only look at price and time, right? So I'm just looking at this chart and it could be anything. This could be a corn chart, a natural gas chart. I would evaluate it the same way, but you'll notice that there is no volume. There is no, moving averages. There's no MACD. There's no Bollinger Band. There's nothing on this chart. I just look at a simple picture of price and time. And based on the patterns, all I try and do is get in sync. So what I do is I look for a governing pattern. A governing pattern means a pattern that tells me what the story is. So this pattern all the way back here was my governing or dictating pattern. That means that governed and dictated everything I did for a year after this was formed. So this is, the cheat sheet for dummies. When I saw this pattern in Zoom or Peloton or Beyond Meat 18 months ago, I was alerting our members to sell Beyond Meat, Zoom, Peloton. Even though those were the flavor of the day, Zoom was the biggest company, I was saying you have to sell this. That was at $580. Zoom hit $90. Now, Zoom could be a company that looks like it could, go the other way, go higher. But this is the analysis I do. There are no indicators. There's no nothing. Just from this chart, I'm looking for patterns and price action to set up risk-reward relationships where I can make way more than I risk on the upside and on the downside. Doesn't really matter. I'm agnostic. I'll go for the ride, whichever way. I'll surrender to the will of the market. It's going down here, it's going up here. Let's go and take that ride. And then how do you determine, how to get out? Well, there's certain things right here that, indicate that there's pretty limited upside, and this may be a trap. It gets here and goes back. So this needs to do a lot of work before it can get going again. You don't just reverse these trends very easily. So a lot of this comes, with a lot of knowledge of the markets, but you don't have to be that sophisticated. Just be an observer. I'll just go for the ride as long as it'll take me. And then, I'll look for areas where it says, okay, made a new high, close on the low, and now it has something like this, and then I'm going to get out. So, but this was, again, a good risk reward to take, when I sent the signal out today, or even today, I was telling our members that they needed to buy this today. I do something in the morning called the boiler room. If you join the elite program, that's something that comes along with it. And so every day I'm looking at things that we're going to buy or sell. And I said, BABA is, something that I feel very comfortable, even if the market goes down, that this thing looks like it's, going to levitate. And I said, if it doesn't, you're going to risk like $3. It's no big deal. Usama says, I shorted Zoom on Mark's free webinar, made $18,000 with a $3,000 investment by buying puts on earnings in November 21. So thanks for that endorsement, Usama. So that, again, I'm not asking you to take my word for anything. We have thousands of members around the world. Usama was just, nice enough to put her comments in the chat box here. And if you don't mind, I'll just, so again, people, say, well, what's the cost of your program or whatever? And I say, well, what's the cost of education? What's the value of knowing, to me, it's like, give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day. Teach a man how to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. Now, it might sound self-serving, and I'm not asking you to sign up. What you do is up to you. But you can determine the value. What is the value of knowledge? What is the value of information? So I always found it, when I was a kid, I used to get this book, that told you what was going to be on television. It was called TV Guide. And this was in the, 70s or something like that, where we didn't have, fancy remote controls and all of this stuff, where you bought a book every week, with all of the programs. And I never forget reading this when I was 12 or 15 or something like that. And it really, to this day, I remember it. And it said how TV Guide is worth more than Boeing. And I found that just extraordinary. And what it was really saying is that data, information, is worth more than tangible stuff. So look at a company like Google. It just has information and data on you. It really doesn't have any hard assets. And it's the biggest company in the world. Over a company like Boeing that's, just going lower every day. So, what is the value of information? And, that's up to you to decide that. So this is what Usama said. She said, I shorted Zoom. This is, I think, Usama, when Zoom was like $260, right? And it fell $50 after earnings. Or, maybe it was even prior to that. So I did 2 earnings things on Zoom. And right after I shorted it, 2 minutes later, Zoom was down $50 in the aftermarket. So Usama says, I shorted Zooms on Mark's free webinar and made $18,000 with a $3,000 investment by buying puts. So puts is a very leveraged way to bet on a decline in any asset that you're looking at. I own puts on, SLV right now. So I'm betting that SLV is going to go lower. And it's a bet where, I have to risk all of what I put up in the puts, but my risk is limited to whatever I put in that premium. So in a way, it's very risky. In a way, I'm like short now on the spot market. And if something happens and silver went up a few dollars, I'd lose a significant amount of money. So actually options are a way of limiting your risk. You have to be aware that most of the times you're going to lose. So you have to be prepared. But, in this case, Usama made 6 times the money on that investment. And, this is, remember this guy, Kevin O'Leary on Shark Tank. You know who that guy is? I'm sure he's a smart guy, but he makes the dumbest investment calls. And I was actually going to write to him and, offer him my free advice, because that guy is just the worst thought. You see him on CNBC and everything he says, go the other way. So this is Zoom, right? And this is what I was saying to, Usama and others, in this time frame where you kind of had this head and shoulders here, and it was already showing signs of fatigue. But, in the market, this is when this is still in COVID, and it's during all this excitement and run up. And so, you're thinking in these run ups that Zoom is still a stock to own. And yet this very simple chart pattern here told me what was going on. So this has been my reference for Zoom all the way down here. Now, ironically, I think Zoom could be poised for a little bit of a breakout here to the upside. But in the meantime, it dropped from 600 down to 70. And so Usama was on one of my webinars where I must have said, so I know there was a earnings call there, which I made like $50 on. And then there was an earnings call here. So this is why most people get invested in stories. So this guy, Kevin O'Leary, does anybody know who that is? He's on Shark Tank. He's kind of the bald guy, Mr. Wonderful, they call him. And he was on CNBC right there. Okay, it was the day they were going to announce earnings that afternoon. And I'm loading up on puts and shorting this thing. And I'm watching this guy on TV, you know, that I have respect for. And he says, man, you got to think of Zoom as a telco. You got to look at it in a completely different way. You got to buy it now before the earnings. Well, that was at 260. And this is what happened after earnings. It just dropped like $80, like pronto. So this is why most people, even smart people like Kevin O'Leary, he's a smart guy, but the market has nothing to do with brains. The market is ahead of the information. You can't think of the market in terms of stories, in terms of PE ratios, in terms of whatever these guys spin you. This was the story. This was multiple bear patterns within a descending triangle. So this is a bear triangle where you can see once it broke out here, it was gone. So within this triangle, there were multiple, here was the head and shoulders, here was the double top, here was another double top, and here was the final double top. And so all of these told me that just like Tesla, this is what Tesla looks like now. You have these multiple distribution tops, and this is what Tesla is going to look like. I don't care what that Morgan Stanley analyst has to say. The market is telling me, you know, something different than that analyst wants to spin you on. And so, you know, ironically, I was looking at Zoom here, and we could be forming a bit of a breakout here where Zoom put in these two reversals, made a new hot low, close on the high. And so you kind of got this coil. Now, this is still very much of a downtrend, but, you know, Zoom could still go to 140 and be down 80% from its high. So, you know, if the market bounces, this is something that, you know, I would look to, you know, so you can see we've just in this very tight coil. Now, this could be a bit of a trap where you know, just come above here and then it gets you. So you got to be very careful. And there's, you know, this guy right back here that's kind of standing in the way, but you know, that guy's at about 130. So there may be something here. So if the market goes up, you know, Zoom's going to probably participate. But, you know, I'm very reticent to buy the market right now. I'm kind of just, if it goes up, I'll let those things that are going to go up, let them go up. I'm short Tesla, I'm short silver, and, you know, so, but I'm just kind of giving you a way. There's thousands of things. Some markets are going up, some are going down. What I try and do at the Pattern Trader is give people a way to look at the markets just through the prism of price. Price tells the whole story. Kevin O'Leary can spin a story. This is you know, the next telco. I remember he was telling me while I was shorting Coinbase that this is a new paradigm. You got to think of this as a new way people are going to do their, you know, their broking. And it was right at, you know, like right before this thing broke. So, you know, he was, you know, Kevin O'Leary, again, the same thing, right up here, somewhere here, like around 250. You got to think of this as a new way to invest your money. This is a paradigm for the future. Yeah, well, that's your future if you listen to people, including me, right? I could, you know, say I'm short silver today and be long, you know, 3 days from now. I'm just looking at what the market is telling me. But this is why, you know, you have to, first off, Coinbase told you where it was going to be right on day one of its what's called an initial public offering. Everybody was getting the puck out. Every one of the insiders was getting out. How do I know that? It opened at a high and closed at the very low. And that was it. That was it. So that's what these IPOs are. They're a way for insiders, you know, who've been building stock to hand it over to you so they can get out. And they unload it on unsuspecting things. So after this thing dipped, you know, it put on this, you know, head and shoulders here, right when Kevin O'Leary was telling me to buy it. This was breaking the neckline. I'm going, what? And so you can see it broke, and this is what prices do. This is what silver might do. It broke out, retest that thing, bangs it a couple times, and then it gets going. But this told me the whole story. I'm a beginner in the trade world. What are you going to recommend me to trade? So Crawley, we have all kinds of programs at the Pattern Trader. You can check out our website, which is thepatterntrader.com. You can check out my book. I put the link in there. Dwight, if you want to put it back in there again, you can check out my book. We do all kinds of things. Tomorrow, I do something called the Underground Training Sessions, where I look at all of the markets like I'm going through now, all of the markets that I think are going to move one way or another. And then, I open it up to all the members on that. Some of the people have been there 5 years. And, that's a great way to learn too, where I go through all the markets. I show you what I'm looking at, like Coinbase, what it was going to do then, what is it going to do now? Then I answer all of your questions. So if you want me to look at any chart, that's really the format to look at. So the underground trading things, we do all kinds of things. So just contact our sales team, and whatever, way you want to get started, let us know how we can help you. Duncan said the underground is great. So thanks for that, Duncan. So Duncan's somebody that, one of the many of our members that have been there for a long time. And I really appreciate, Duncan and everybody's support. Is your subscription lifetime? I guess, no, we sell them in different increments. So, but which broker do you use? Let's see. Johannes says, I noticed the W and M patterns appear in all kinds of charts, even in the weather charts. Yeah, so it does. I look, anything that has a movement, has patterns. So, when I go to the ocean, you can just look out in the ocean and it all looks like there's all these ripples. But if you start staring close enough, you'll start seeing patterns out there. One of the things I talk about, and I never saw the updated movie. There was a movie called Papillon with Steve McQueen and Dustin Hoffman. It was, a classic movie 100 years ago. They've since made a sequel, which I didn't watch because that one was so great. I can't imagine that it would be, anything of an improvement. But this guy Papillon was jailed, in some jail in French Guiana, where, you put in a solitary confinement for 30 years and you go crazy. And he spent his whole time there trying to break out. He got busted. Every time he busted, they gave him 10 more years. And he spent his whole lifetime trying to chase freedom, right? So finally, when he's much older, him and the Dustin Hoffman character get shipped off to this island that is literally, 300-foot cliffs with this little piece of property on it. So there's no fences or anything because, you're 300 feet and you're just surrounded by ocean. No way off, no way to break out, whatever. So he sits out on this bench staring at the ocean for, days, weeks, months. And then he excitedly runs back to, the Dustin Hoffman character. And he says, listen, I've got a way out. We're just going to jump off these cliffs. And this guy goes, what are you, insane? We'll be crushed by those waves. He says, no. He says, what I noticed was that, these waves come in like increments of 7, and then they crash on the shore. But then every 7th one, what happens is the wave starts going back out. After, seven of those, types of consecutive movements, the 7th one goes back the other way. So he says, if we just throw this coconut raft out there, we can get, swept out back to sea. So the point is that he noticed a pattern, in the ocean. There are patterns in weather. There are patterns all over. And that's why I'm called the pattern trader. I love, these kind of things. It just amazes me that you can see this kind of stuff in Bitcoin, in treasury bills, in everything. Everything is patterns. It's a function of human greed, human emotion, and it all comes together in certain patterns. And all you have to do is observe the patterns, observe the market, and the market will tell you where it wants to go. Nobody else is smarter than the market. So that is the premise under which I live my life. What do I think about Bitcoin? You know, it's in a bad pattern. You know, my wife loves Bitcoin, and I was begging her to sell it, but I'll just go to a Bitcoin website here, you know, just look at a crude chart. But, you know, everything has patterns, right? So I said to her, once this thing cleans through 32,000, it's over. So this is Bitcoin. And, you know, you kind of have this double top here, or it's, you know, looks like a, you know, even in this kind of shorter time frame, there was a Head and Shoulders double top here, or even if you know, break it out, you can just look at that as a, you know, Head and Shoulders. And to me, this was, you know, the big neckline. And once it cleaned through this 32,000, it's going to 8,000. So, you know, anything could be analyzed by looking at patterns. Everything makes a pattern. And so to me, you know, just a very simple measurement from the neckline to the top is 32,000 to 65,000, 33,000. So if you just, you know, take whatever, 60% of that, you're going to come to, you know, 10,000. I think you're going under 10,000, you know, lower. I don't really believe in cryptos. I think this is a sign of the speculation that's been happening, and why the markets really need to do such a purging. Why I think the markets will go down so significantly. It's because of excess speculation like this. And this was only enabled by, you know, unlimited amounts of money floating around from the Federal Reserve. And now they're taking away that money. So it's just going to keep going that way. But that was really the inflection point right there once it broke. But to me, you know, I saw it right at the top. 1, 2, just made this double top right here. And that was it. So, you know, and then you made, you know, a shorter Head and Shoulders there. But so, you know, the distribution was happening all over the place. So you Head and Shoulders there, then you had the secondary. So the markets kind of go down in stages. You might just bounce around here and then go to the next stage and then bounce around there. So, you know, that's what the markets tend to do. But I think it's, you know, going to go down in dust. So that's basically what we do at the Pattern Trader. I hope that, you know, I gave you something to think about. And I would very much appreciate if you would put a review on our website. Here's a link to write a review. I'd really like to know how you received this information. Again, sometimes, you know, some of it is in my brain. I don't know if I explain it well enough. And I'm not looking for, you know, great reviews. Whatever you want to say, even if you say, hey, I really enjoyed it, please use your words and, you know, tell me what you got out of it. And I would really appreciate it. I know everywhere you go, everybody asks for a review, but, you know, sometimes we get negative reviews from people who are just trying to tarnish my reputation so that they can steal my traffic and, you know, steal it. So, you know, I would really appreciate if you could, you know, just tell me whatever you got out of these sessions. So Jean-Louis, given the logical structure of chart pattern analysis, don't you think it could be scanned through AI to identify and screen the best? So yes, it could, and there's all kinds of filters, and this is a great website that you can use to filter a bunch of stuff. But to me, the markets are dynamic, and so I'll just put this, so this is called FinViz. Sorry, my browser is just giving me troubles today. So I'll put the link in the chat box here. Sorry, my computer's just overwhelmed. I need to restart it. So this is a screener, and it's really phenomenal. You can, choose whatever exchange you want to look at. Sorry, my screen is really buffering here. So you can go through, look at the index you want to look at. You can look at, mid caps, large caps by, by capitalization, by sector. So you want, industrials, you want real estate, what have you, country. And so you can put all of these screens in here. And then you get pages and pages of industrial stocks, or pages and pages of, and so the neat thing here is that I just scroll through these, and it just shows me the chart. So I can just stop on a chart. So this looks like a wedge that is breaking down here, AIS, whatever this is, it's breaking down. So you can just screen all of these things. And so, you think energy is in vogue, you can screen energy stocks. So it's a phenomenal screener. So to the question, can't you use some AI thing? So first off, this thing will look for patterns too. There's, ways that they'll go, and you can use futures, Forex. You can look for patterns. The thing is that the markets will throw you patterns all the time. And then, that's where the human dimension needs to come in, where I, go to the screener and they show me double tops, or what they think double tops are, but I don't think that's a double top, by virtue of my instinct or the way I see things. So, look, I always believe the human mind is the best weapon. And, AI is coming along, but I don't think it can replace instinct. And, so I've seen so many things where it looks like a double top and then it'll get negated. So, if you saw this right here, that would look like a double top to me, right? Or it's a U. Right here is a double top, right? Make one peak, back off, make another peak. Here's the thing though, it never confirmed. It never went through this low. You can see how sometimes these things just sneakily stop short. So I used to lose so much money thinking this was a double top and trading it that way. But I've learned, I said, the thing right up front that, what I try and do with the pattern trader is help you capitalize on the monster moves, but more importantly, avoid the traps. So, very often you'll see, a thing like that looks like a double top and you're shorted, and then there you go. So that's why, I think I'm better than AI. I don't rely on anybody but my own analysis. And, I've just learned that the market, you see these descending wedges, and typically my expectation is you should see this. Well, what I've learned in these wedges is that they'll go like this, and then it'll just stop short here. And if it comes out here, then it's going to go the other way. The dollar yen did this. I expected dollar yen to go this way. And when it kind of did this, I got on the opposite train. So there is, certain experience, there's certain instinct that comes in that I think be very difficult to teach AI. But, what I do, and I go to that site, I look at everything that AI, tells me is a double top, and then I sort out for myself what I think, is the relevant pattern. So, is this a double top? It is right now, it won't be if it does that. So, I think it is. And so that's what's ruling the S&P. So you got to be very careful on the long side, because you could get a ride, but the big wave's going to come in and probably do that. So Randy says, instinct. I remember when you were long everything on Monday and Tuesday, sold everything on Wednesday, and then bought a bunch of puts and went the other way. So yeah, that was, right here. I just kept those trades up here. So I was long all of these things. I was having a heart attack Monday and Tuesday. I was long Uber. I was long the Dow Jones. I was long Bumble stock. I was long Zoom. And, then I got on the other side the next day. I bought SPXU, which is actually an inverse. It's a bet on the S&P going down. And then I started shorting this stock, Illumina, at 233, and I got out at 198. And made a whole bunch of money on the upside. I was long Alibaba in that time frame. I was long Bumble. I was long JD. Got out of all of those things, and then went the other way. Went short. I bought puts on the Qs. I sold 4,000 shares of Illumina at 233 and got out of it at 198 on 4,000 shares. So I just went completely the other way in that week. And so, and made a whole bunch of money, 600 grand on this set of trades. So, I will ride the market, both ways. Ollie says, thanks for your time and efforts the last 3 days. So Ollie, thank you. And again, if you would, I would really, if you really want to thank me, just write a review one way or another. Just put it right there. Graham, you're welcome. Dippy says, when you speak about a contract when signing with you, is that correct? When you sign up for the Elite program, yes, you do kind of agree to certain conditions. And that's just, part and parcel of any offer. What about using powerful tools of AI to, just looking at some of your questions. Tim says, thanks, Mark and team. You have so much to share. So thanks for that, Tim. I appreciate it. Kalpish, you'll get a link. I think after this webinar, you'll get a registration if you want to speak to one of our representatives about the Elite. We don't accept everybody. I'll be honest with you. There actually is a review in here. I think somebody was under a misunderstanding. And so, this is, I think, the only negative review. We have 265 reviews. And this fellow was, trying to pressure us, in different ways. And, he was under just a misimpression. So you'll see that there. And we don't accept everybody. It was said here, our core objective is to keep the Elite program limited to those that meet our strict suitability policy. Unfortunately, most prospects are not accepted. So again, you can't just sign up for the Elite program. It's not available on our website it's deliberate. This is not just something, people can walk off the street and sign up for. We want to make sure you're committed. You are committed to yourself. You have a long-term view. And when you sign up, you'll know all of the parameters, involved there. So there are no surprises. Frankly, I make all of my money from trading. I don't make enough in this business to really justify it. I really love giving back. I actually read something recently. I forgot what the book was, but they said that the best thing you can do for yourself medically is actually to help somebody else. So I'm not doing this to, but I signed up, I started this 5 years ago. I never knew what I was getting into, but really what I've gotten out of it is a whole community it's like a second family of people that have been with me for years and years. And, I just get a lot of, gratification out of that. I'm always watching the markets. I'm always calling my friends and talking about the markets. So in the morning, I get on with a bunch of like-minded people on the Boiler Room. and we talk about the markets. We talk about what's coming up, and usually I'm pretty much on the nose. So, but it's not for everybody. It's up to you to decide what you want in your trading. If you decide not to, do anything, I'll be around, and, hopefully I'll see you somewhere along our respective trading journey. So in the meantime, just want to thank everybody. I hope you got something out of the last 3 days, and thanks T Washington. Thanks. I'll look for your review. So again, I'm looking forward to, hearing what you guys got out of it. Again, I know a lot of these things operate in my brain. There's so many things going on in the market. I never know if I, communicated effectively, but, hopefully you got something out of it. At least it was worth the cost of the webinar. Thanks, Jason. All right, Dwight, thank you very much. We'll see you all later.
All right, Mark.
Thank you, Dwight. Take care, man.
Bye.